Today, I sit down with a dear friend of mine to talk about setting boundaries for your life and why that is so important for your mental health and for your personal growth. We talk about boundaries right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey podcast. We're all about mindset here, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. Today, we are sitting down and we're talking about boundaries. We've talked about this before on the show, but today we want to be just candid, like raw, like just eavesdropping on a conversation with a good friend about how we've had to set boundaries in our lives and what that's done for us and how it can be difficult to do it, right? Because off camera, we were talking about even sometimes with family members or even friends, you have to set those boundaries. So we are talking about that. I am your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsey, a certified life coach, peak performance coach. If you are looking for any coaching, you can reach me at any of my handles, which is at CoachLorraineLindsey.com or at Coach Lorraine Lindsey on my social media. Cleve, what's on? What's up?
What's going on? Look, you gonna make it. Get ready.
Listen, it's been a long time.
It has. It's been a good while. And thank you for allowing me to come back on your show as well, which is pretty dope.
Allowing you. You're welcome anytime.
I've definitely watched you with the growth. I watched the producer with his growth as well,
right.
How he's been producing and moving as well. You guys got it going on.
Well, when you coming back, you had your own podcast show, which was great. You were the one who inspired me and told me to start putting my clips on TikTok. And I was like, I'm not doing any more social media, blah, blah, blah. And I did. And it really just kind of blew up. It took on a life of its own, which was really cool. But that also changed the dynamics of my business. So I have to thank you for that. Because I was very, very reluctant in the beginning to do any more social media.
Hey, you killed it too. Yeah, you killed it. I want to tell you, social media is a full-time job. And when a person actually initially goes on social media, you're not always ready for it. There are some people out there that will come at you with some extra.
Oh, my goodness.
That, I mean, you want to tell them like you possum face looking, but you got to keep your cool. You got to keep your cool because there's some people that literally sit behind the computer, antagonize you, try to pick you apart, and really discourage you from moving forward.
You know what also is interesting, too, is like I sometimes will post things that I think are really positive, and I feel like it's a really good message, and it will trigger people, and they will say things, and I'm like, where did they get all of that from that little 1 minute clip, you know? But it really doesn't bother me because first of all, I know I don't know these people, and I know they don't know me, so I never take it personally, but I do recognize a lot of projection when people get triggered by certain things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I said, sometimes I'll get some of the, I kind of think it's comical, and people are like, why do you respond? And I'm like, because it's funny, you know?
Man, the first time I actually started posting, it was some women that was going at me because I was talking about something on the podcast.
Okay.
And I was saying, I feel like I was raised by hyenas. and I was like I was dead serious.
Okay.
And these women come at me hard. And then what made it hard for me to respond was because it was my mom's, just her anniversary of her death. So within that same year, so it was hard, like trying to combat that. So you don't know all that's going on within yourself,
right?
Trying to deal with that. But I was just trying to tell people like that's how it feels, because I correlate things with animals a lot. Okay. When you look at how a man always fights for the woman's attention, I've never seen a woman animal fight to get the man's attention. Never. I've never seen a woman animal fight to mate with a man.
Interesting.
So
okay.
when you look at male animals, the male animals look down upon. But the hyenas are the only animal that's led by women. They don't respect men. They demean the character.
Wait, did you just say hyenas don't respect men?
Hyenas do not respect the men. No.
Are we using this as a metaphor?
No,
or
this
are we
is real
literally
life.
Talking about the animal?
I'm talking about the animal. But there are people with hyena mindsets.
So when you say hyenas don't like men, are you referring to human beings, or are you talking about their male animals?
No, the animals. The animals that are in a hyena pack.
Okay.
The women's are the leader. There's a queen
Okay.
and there's a princess.
Okay.
The queen, the princess are always ready to go to war with each other to take each other's place.
Okay.
They're constantly cackling. They constantly got a lot of drama going on.
Now, I would like to know what National Geographic magazine or news article or wherever you got all this information from, because it's very, very specific. How do you know so much about hyenas?
I grew up watching Discovery Channel as a kid. Come on, what you expect? We grew up watching the PBS and all that stuff on TV. You know what I'm talking about. We had all those. So I watched National Geographics, and I watched how every living species respect the men except for hyenas.
Okay.
And this is real facts. Go look it up for yourself. This is not something I'm making up. It's not something I heard nobody else say. I've known this for a while, and I look at it and I say, wow, growing up amongst women who put all the men down. My environment.
And that's your experience. Okay.
In my environment, my experience. I watch the women. If a man is progressing, it's goal to tear him down. If he has a relationship, tear it down. It ain't never going to work. He ain't never going to be successful. Then I watch these hyenas tear down the younger girls.
Now, are we talking about the actual hyenas now, or are we talking about the people?
I'm talking about in the people that I grew up around. These hyenas now.
I just want to
clarify.
Neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, there are hyenas. So we have, it's a mindset. And when I use that, it's a metaphor, a mindset of how we have a division going on. We have more hyenas amongst us than we have lions, elephants, giraffes.
Okay, from your experience.
From my experience.
So let's talk about that then. So how did that experience, from your experience, you felt as though the women in your life and in your neighborhood or whatever, they were the hyenas, as you call them. But they would tear down men and disrespect men or emasculate them, right? Why do you think that was, and what did that do for you as a man?
I grew up as a young man. A lot of us grew up knowing that women don't do no wrong, even when they're wrong. A lot of us grew up believing that we was worthless. It demeans your character within a man. You don't even know your worth. So for me, I grew up, and this brings back to a point of insecurity as well.
Okay.
I grew up as a young man never knowing my worth, never knowing what I bring to the table. I bring so much to the table, but it was never respected along the way.
It was never enough.
Never. It was never respected. And so when I spent all those years, this is a part of healing. When you're going through healing, you're detoxing a lot of this mindset that you never knew nothing about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is why I always tell this. I took this class years ago, and I reference it quite a bit. And I use it actually in my coaching because it was so incredibly powerful. But it was, the landmark form was the course that I took. And it was, you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And when we talk about how we grew up and these different things that we were seeing and witnessing and, you know, being a sponge to that, and how it becomes such a part of your psyche that sometimes it's a roadblock that you don't even know is there.
Yes.
So you go through life and you're like, why are my relationships really bad? Or why am I having these type of friendships? Or why am I this and that? I'll give you a perfect example. My family, right? My mom and my sisters, there was 4 of us girls growing up.
Ooh.
We were shut down people. Okay. So my mom was, when she was mad, she would shut down. And what I mean by shut down is we could go months without talking to one another, right? All of us. If we beef, we won't talk. It's a complete shutdown. Now, I did not know that was not normal because it was all I knew. So I remember years later, as you know, we're young adults, and my sister was dating somebody, and they all, who she was dating, and the guy I was dating at the time, were in the barbershop. And they were making jokes like, oh, them Lindsay girls, they're cold pieces, right?
Ooh.
They're like, they'll cut you off and never talk to you again. And they're all cracking up laughing. Now they're telling me, the guy's telling me about the story. And I was like, well, that's what everybody does. You know, mind you, I'm in my early 20s at the time. I'm like, that's what everybody does. If you get mad, you just stop talking. And he's like, no, that's not what people do. And it was that first time, and we had a conversation about it, but it was the first time in my life that it made me kind of take note. I was like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe this isn't healthy that we don't communicate for months at a time. And I started like asking friends and other people, like, well, when you and your family get into it, what do y'all do? Do you guys quit talking to each other? Like, no, I would never quit talking. And it made me realize, like, wow, this is like a really unhealthy thing that myself and my family, but I didn't know it was a thing.
You know what's so crazy about that? Go back to the community aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one thing that was very heavy in the community was the church.
Okay.
I grew up in the church. And amongst the church didn't respect. There was always a thing. I heard this in the churches I grew up with in my environment.
Okay.
Go put that man on child support. If he don't do right, if he don't do this, leave him, girl. And what's so crazy mentally is the only people who had a relationship was the pastors.
Mm.
The pastor's the only one that we're supposed to give praise to have a healthy relationship. I'm saying within where I was raised.
Your experience, yeah.
I'm not saying everybody goes through that because some people may be in a healthy church. But in the environment where I was at, see, on the west side in Las Vegas, there's over almost 200 some churches in a small little area, sitting in the same parking lot, right across the street from each other, next to each other, and they don't even socialize. But they're also competing against each other constantly. When you go to other neighborhoods, such as other religions, they have a church in each community. They don't have them in the same street. They don't have them up the street just like that. So there's a total different level of respect because if you live in this neighborhood, you go to that church. But when you look at what we are, they're constantly recruiting and going against each other. The tear down mechanism. So when you fast forward that to the whole family dynamic, where was the teaching to help build us up to change that mindset so that we become better? There's so much greatness, like where you can be great and you see all the great things you can do or great things that you never even accomplished. But a lot of that is stagnated based upon the environment that you dealt with.
Okay, so let's tap into that because we wanted to start. We started this whole conversation about boundaries, and I love this as a great segue into that because when we grow up in a specific dynamic, we grow up with a culture, or because there's culture and then there's culture within culture. Because within your own little family, you have a way of doing things, right? And I think when we branch out and we learn life, especially if we have I don't say luxury or the ability or the openness, maybe openness is the right word, the openness to expand ourselves and learn other people, you start to see the functions and the dysfunctions of how you grew up.
Yes.
And not everybody moves out of that space. You know, it's what do you call the generational curse, or it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the grandma did it and great grandma did it and grandma did it. And so it just keeps going. And then there's that one, the black sheep, so to speak, that's like, no, I think things should be different. And I'm circling back to what I was saying about shutting down and not speaking. When I realized how toxic and how dysfunctional that was, it was a poor way of communication amongst me and my sisters and my mother. I vowed for myself that my son and I will never, ever experience that. No matter what is happening with us, no matter if there's conflict or what have you, I will not shut down and cut my son off. But I struggle with it in my personal relationships, though. Like in my relationship, when I'm upset and there's conflict, I literally still shut down. And it's so hard for me to break from that.
Detoxing that is hard too. Let me go with this part, because when we're talking about trying to break that mindset, now that's a whole nother battle in its own. Because there has to be a person, I've learned that there are a lot of people that want you, but they're not ready for you.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is a lot of people want the essence of you and everything that looks great, but they don't know how to deal with the complications of you. A lot of people don't have enough patience to deal with that part. So everything outside.
I prefer the word complexities rather than complications.
Got it. So you trying to say because you're more light-skinned than me, that's better, huh? No, I'm lighting this camera. This camera got me glowing. So one of the greatest things is that a lot of people, I've run into this over time, is that I never realized, I never gave myself enough credit of how gifted I am.
Okay.
I've never given myself that much credit.
And why do you think that is?
Because I was torn down the vast majority of my life. So I spent the majority of my time, I spent all of my elementary, junior high, and high school years never smiling in pictures.
I remember you in high school. We go way back.
Yeah, because people told me, don't smile, that's fucking horrible. Oh, excuse me, you don't need to smile. And I spent a lot of time trying to be hard and be cool, but I spent many of my years trying to be accepted. And in reality is they wanted to be like me, but I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't have enough confidence to even acknowledge that. So a lot of people will deal with things, complexities like that within themselves. So if I spent I never really started smiling until I was in my 30s.
So how did you have the epiphany though? Then what was it for you to kind of realize in a reflective way, right? Because you can go through all of that and someone can tear you down and then you keep it. And you keep it in a way that does create detrimental outcomes for your life, right? So how did you, when did it click for you that, okay, this stuff, this me being, as a man being torn down constantly in my life, when did you realize no more? And how do I reconstruct and build myself as a man? And have you?
Even though I got to the point of saying no more, people have you so figured out that they keep saying you can have more.
Okay, what do you mean by
You
that?
can handle more because we will always know and recognize the truth.
But how did you recognize? That was my question. So
What
was that light bulb for you where you were like, man, I've been being torn down and I got to start building myself up. I mean, or have you even gotten to that space?
Yes.
Okay.
I more so got there within this last year and a half.
Okay. And what was that for you?
It took me losing my businesses, my properties, and almost losing my personal property. I lost so much. It's like some people go through so much. I was stripped down so much that I sat in so much isolation that I had to start dealing with things while I had the free time. And in the beginning, I constantly blamed other people.
Okay.
We are taught sometimes that we don't know how to take accountability for ourselves.
Right.
And when I looked at it, I'm like, had this person not done this and that person not done it and this wouldn't have never happened and that. But then when I took a step back, I say, how did they get close to me?
Right.
What was going on with me that they had so much access to me? What was wrong with me that I wanted to make sure that they can do this and do that? And why was I talking so much and this and that? And
that's when the power starts happening, when you start asking yourself.
Correct.
Your participation in your demise. And what's interesting to me, the irony, right, is how life shows up in a way in which we speak to ourselves. And it's interesting that you used the word, they were tearing me down. And in an emotional sense, but yet in order for you to understand that, you have to be torn down in a literal sense.
Yes. So being broken into that capacity, because for me, I was raised in church too.
Okay.
So here's a two-fault for me. I'm raised in church, and I'm a part of my community.
Okay.
And then within my
which seems like that would be a good thing.
It's a good portfolio, right?
Okay.
So it's on my portfolio. But then the reality is there are no men that are real true leaders. There are men that are leaders by default, but they are not
in
men
your community.
In my community.
In your experience.
So in my experience, for instance, I'll give you a prime example that you have a pastor who's a leader. And he can have his choice of all the different women, and you see that on a regular and that. So he's there and he's abusing the power, but he does not know how to lead the people to the next level.
Okay.
He know how to talk a good game, but he don't know what to do from here. Because some people have maxed out where they already played the game, and now they will allow somebody that they don't know, that don't have nothing on their resume, come and lead them. That's how misguided the people are. So I level myself down so low that I reverence these people's opinion of me when these people should have been asking me for my opinion. So that's what happens within the community. So you're so gifted, you can do this and do that and so on and so on. But because I don't know who I am, I'm sitting here waiting on their approval.
Right.
I'm waiting on them to tell me you did good or you didn't, but they never did unless there was a benefit. You see, so now we're playing psychological games. So in the isolation for myself, now I have no church because I'm out of the church. I have nobody around me. Everybody that came around while there's a benefit, nobody's around. And now I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do?
Right.
And when I started...
Would you say that was a breakdown, like a rock bottom for you?
It was such a rock bottom. I would leave out of this studio and not have power on at my house. I've done a podcast trying to encourage other people, but I don't have no power on at my house. Wow. What does that look like? But then I'm sitting here trying to keep it together because we were taught, don't tell nobody what you're going through. Don't let nobody know what's going on internally. And now I've gotten to the point, I said, no, I don't mind speaking now.
Right.
I don't mind speaking. I spent so many years of my life, I'm talking about me now.
Of course.
Where we will watch people who were pedophiles, predators in the neighborhood, and everybody knew about it, nobody said nothing. People watch others be violated and they don't say nothing about it. And we were taught in the code, what, you don't say nothing. Keep it on the hush. You're a snitch. How am I a snitch when I'm telling somebody doing wrong towards me?
Right.
Or towards somebody else? So
then again, and it's circling back to the whole boundaries thing, right? Being able to say, you know what, I see all of these things. I see how it's affecting me personally. And now I have to create boundaries. So I want to kind of talk about that a little bit more, because I feel like I had did a show a while back and I did a clip on boundary, and I got such a huge response from it because so many people struggle with creating healthy boundaries, particularly when it comes to people that they feel are very close to them, or like family, or even close friends, right? When people struggle with wanting to have a tribe and not being alone and wanting to keep people in proximity to them, and they know that there's certain boundaries that are not being kept, but they don't know how to speak up and say, this is a hard line in the sand for me. These are my boundaries, because they're worried about losing people.
Because sometimes we don't have that. Here's the dilemma. If you never had a father, what are you doing? You're constantly looking for a father. If you never had the true support of your mother, what are you constantly looking for? The support of your mother. Because most people will come and play that role for you. They will come imitate a role that they're not really trying to play, but they're trying to sit here and manipulate. So now you're being manipulated and you're going back and forth. A lot of people know how to use what—
Is it manipulation though? Because I feel like when it's like the key and the keyhole, if you will, right?
Okay.
I feel like when we have voids in our lives, I don't feel the person that comes into your life is necessarily manipulating you.
No.
I think that that's a lie we tell ourselves, because we are engaging in that relationship because we want them to fill that void for us.
So that's what I'm saying. Some people, okay, I want you to fill that void for me. A lot of people don't know how to fill that void.
Because it's not to be filled
But because
by other people.
It is not to be.
Yeah.
But because it looks good. What's the benefit of me being connected to you? I get to drive your car. I get to drive her car. She's going to drive me around the city.
But it fulfills each person's need. It's like saying this: who's worse, the drug dealer or the drug dealer? They both need, the drug dealer or the drug addict.
Yeah.
They both need, there's a need for each one. If one person stops being that, the other person has no point in their life, right? And so I hear it, I watch, I've been listening, I hear like people on social media, and they get so much like likes and stuff when they talk about describing the narcissistic person. And then the person's looking at that like, oh, yep, I'm with that narcissist. But what is it about that person that's feeling a void? You guys are in an unhealthy relationship because both people are participating. We can't be so external and say this person's manipulating me. If you know they're manipulating you, what is it about them that you keep them in your life that's filling a void? And we have to get clear on that so we can have people in our lives in a healthy way, in my opinion.
Can I interject really quick?
Of course you can.
So here's to bring this together.
Okay.
Is there are people, what I've learned, that there are people, like you say, that want to fill a void. So somebody will go and get in a bad, unhealthy relationship that they control.
Right.
Because it takes all the focus off of them of what they've done wrong, what they're doing. They get to blame other people, right? So you have that, and they say that's a narcissistic person. But the other person needs somewhere to stay. So they're going to go ahead and go with the flow, the whole ride, even though they know it ain't going to work.
But they serve one another.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that
in an unhealthy way.
Correct. So that brings back to what you're saying is true. Now, going to the part of what you're saying with boundaries, a lot of us always break our own boundaries because of what we really want. Some of us have been lacking family for so long that you will drop your guard in hopes that your auntie change, in hopes that your sister or brother speaks back to you,
Right.
even though you know what their true intent is.
Right.
That's one of the things that always affects our boundaries, where we can't keep that consistency, because you want that relationship so bad, because you said earlier about black sheep. A lot of times the black sheep is the person that's actually the one that's constantly outed within the families.
I want to read this thing real quick. My sister sent this to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I thought it was really good. It says, everybody talks about cutting people off, but nobody really talks about the grief that comes with having to stand firm on that decision, knowing it's not what you wanted, but what's necessary for your well-being.
Ooh.
And I thought that was so powerful, because what we're saying, when you have, I'll give it like my mom, for example. Okay. Naturally, my inner child always wants a relationship with her mother, right? But that inner child has a very specific way in which she wants that relationship. We create an idea in our mind when we're children, what we want our parents to be for us, right? And we hold them at a high standard, at a high level of expectation of that. And when they fail in our eyes, and I mean it by, this is my definition as an inner child, wanting my mom to be this, and now she's not doing that, so I'm looking at her as a failed parent, right? I'm using this as an example.
Okay.
I always want that inner child always wants that relationship with her mom. but you're not always going to get what you want. And sometimes the residual of that is unhealthy. It creates an unhealthy dynamic that can be very depleting and emotionally just draining for you.
Yeah.
And so as much as I want that level or that kind of relationship with my mother, the inner child wants the mom, I may not get that because that might not be the person that she is. Now, with that, if it's a toxic relationship, again, I'm using it as an example because I don't want my mom thinking I'm talking about her, but when you have to establish boundaries, sometimes you have to cut off people that you really, really love, even sometimes for a period of time.
Yes.
Right? And it's not like do it blatantly. It's just like, or just blindly, I should say. It's about having that conversation and saying, you know what? I love you with everything that I have, but the relationship that we have, unless we are both willing to have a better level, better way of communicating and being together, I have to create distance between us. And it's hard because life is not forever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, for me, when it comes to boundaries, struggle sometimes because I'm like, I'm not going to have this person forever in my life. You know, they could die or I could die. And I don't want to cut off time. But at the same time, too, it's like, I can't keep them in my life for the sake of that. I have to, sometimes you just have to walk away knowing.
Can I interject
on
that part?
Because I'm just rambling.
No. You good, girl. Because here's the thing. I just went through that with my dad.
Okay.
My dad stayed with me for X amount of time for many years, and I took care of him, looking out for him because I wanted my dad to be something that he was not ready to be. Mm. And I kept holding it to him. You can get better. He's going to get better. And my dad, I learned something in this last phase that my dad is never going to change. Mm. And it's my choice to have him in a place where he's not ready to be. And it's not up on me. See, in that I learned in that moment that it takes so much out of you constantly trying to fix somebody that already made their own choices. Because right now you're in your own choices as well. But I would not be able to recognize this had I not went through the phase of healing within myself. Right. So does it hurt? Yes, it hurts. Do I want my dad to be close? Yes. Do I want him to be a good granddad? Yes. But there is something out there that's already overtaken him where he's made a choice where he can't recover right now to become that. So
and it may not, because when you say to become that, that's what you want for him.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because we always, when we have people in our lives, the reality is we want them to fit what makes us comfortable. And so a lot of times when we are dealing and struggling with relationships with people, it's because they're not fitting what we want.
True.
And so the greatest liberation is that it's just to accept them for who they are.
I was just
and then decide if I see this person and I interact with this person and nothing about them was ever to change, could I interact with that person in an accepting way that's not judging them? And if you can't do that, then you have to, first of all, look inside yourself and say why. And then if it's because it's toxic or it's unhealthy, then that's when you have to establish those boundaries. Because again, I'm going to say this again. Everybody that I've ever struggled with, that I've had to create boundaries with, is because I have not been able to accept them for who they are.
I was just about to say that as well, because when they get to a point of when you recognize who they are, where they stand at, now you have to let things go.
Right.
That's a part of creating boundaries as well. When you're able to let it go, because we spend so much time saying that he ain't gonna never get it together and she ain't never gonna get it together. Well, we know they're not gonna get it together. So why are you putting that pressure on them? Enjoy them in the space they are, and the boundary is don't keep them not longer than what you need to. You're trying to hold on to them and say, well, they're going to get it together tomorrow. No, if you recognize that, it's a part where you got to just say, okay, it is what it is. Hey, you came over, you ate. I know you about to steal some plates. I know you about to steal some watches. I got to let you go. And the thing, because I was talking to my uncle a few weeks ago, and I realized I was raised around my uncle. And I picked up a lot of his traits along the way.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that until going through the healing phase. One day I listened to myself talk and I said, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this level. I am a meticulous person, but I'm not a controlling person in the eyes. But I realized a lot of that I had to let go of, because I heard him as he talked. And he talked about what he did and how he did it and what he needs and the praise he needs. And I'm like, damn, I was doing the same exact thing. I was looking for a male figure to emulate, and it became him.
Right.
And I realized along the way, I don't like this characteristic of him. I don't like that. I love him still, but I don't like that. There's a lot of other things outside of that I see, and I say, okay, I know how far I can go.
Right.
Even the thing what you were saying about the siblings, I know right now the mindset, I know the anger that they hold because I've been there.
Mm.
I know how easy it is for somebody to manipulate their emotions against them. And when I say a person manipulates your emotion, for instance, if you're impulsive, a lot of your impulsiveness is from things that you have not dealt with. So if a person comes in and be your friend, and some people get heightened and say, Lorraine, I seen somebody drunk your water. And you're like, oh, hell no, I know they didn't drink my water. And so they know they're going to get you right there. And what you're going to do, you're going to become impulsive. And they can always get you there. Because you have
so we're talking about triggers, right?
We're talking about triggers, and we're talking about getting to a point, because if you have not healed, you don't know how to create those boundaries as well.
Right. You know, I think triggers are important, actually. I think that when you're offended by somebody and somebody offends you, that's a great point. I feel like, okay, let me say it this way. You offending me has little to do with you and more to do with why I'm offended, right? Because there's layers to it. Because I could literally be in the same room. I could be one person and people could do I'm all over the place in my thoughts right now because my head is pounding. You could be triggered by things and offended by things that are deep rooted in yourself, right?
Okay.
The person could do something to you and they have no idea they're going to offend you, but it triggers you and they're like, what was that all about?
Okay.
And I've experienced that with people where I would say a thing to them.
Okay.
And my intention was very well, I had good intention and they totally get triggered. And I have no clue why. So I guess my point is that when you are triggered and you're offended by something, it's a great opportunity for you to reflect. Because a lot of times when we're offended, we just want to be at that person that offended us.
Correct.
But it's like, well, why did that bother me?
See, okay, for me, Clevonne, a trigger, is that I've seen how people kept me in the past.
Okay.
You still got me from what happened in 2009, 2017, but you haven't dealt with me in 2023, 2024.
Right. So you're being held hostage to things
exactly
in the past.
In their mindset. Now,
why does that trigger you?
It's not a trigger no more.
Okay.
It's their mindset of what they think I'm going to do. And I've seen how a person will do something. For instance, I'll give you a prime example. I work somewhere, some person shortchanged me a lot of money. They shortchanged me the money, and normally I would have called and say, you know what, you fat reptilian built mother, and all of that. That's what I would have did in the past.
Thank you for the description.
But now it's more like, that really sucked that they came from you. I hate that.
Yeah.
And it's a person constantly poking at you. I'm sorry that had to happen.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, though. You have a person that shortchanged you on a deal. Did you already kind of know that might happen with that person?
I gave the person a lot more grace than what the case was.
But did you kind of know that might happen?
I didn't put it in my brain. It has happened in the past.
Okay.
But I didn't expect it to happen.
And that's my point. I think that sometimes we put ourselves in situations that we set ourselves up.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and this is where that whole acceptance thing is, and being really clear on why things are offending you.
Yes.
Because sometimes it offends you because you are not dealing with yourself and you're not dealing with unhealed stuff. And so here's this person coming along to remind you of what's not healed. Because that's really what it is. And sometimes we're seeking validation, or like you said, sometimes we want people to be something for us. And so we give them an opportunity time and time again to do the same wrong to us that they've done or that we know that they're capable of doing. And even, I'll give you an example with me. Lending money to people. I don't do it. Okay? I do not lend money to people. There's only a few people that I will give money to because I know they're good for it. But at the same time, I tell myself, if I give somebody some money, I would love for my money to be returned to me, but I'm going to give it knowing that there's a possibility that I may not get that money back.
That's another issue.
So there's boundaries there, right?
So correct. And when you're talking about that, here I go, raised in church. God said give.
Yeah.
Give from your heart. It'll come back to you.
I give from my heart. It's like advice, resources. I don't give money. Listen, God wasn't specific. And I've had to learn that. I've had to learn to say, if I'm a giver, that is my heart to give. I am a giving person, right? But I've had to create boundaries on what I'm willing to give to people. So if someone comes to me with a situation and a problem, I will give them advice. I will give them resources. I will tell them and suggest them what they could do to help them before I give them cash.
That's what I'm saying. What they say, there's a word called cults. A lot of us people are grown up in cults. And what does cults do? low-key
They
brainwashed.
cultivate.
They cultivate, and you low-key become brainwashed.
Okay.
So if you've been raised in this element of this cycle for so many years, what is it? That's the norm.
Yeah.
You go from a childhood all the way to an adult, you have the same mindset.
We're all brainwashed. You don't even have to be in a cult to be brainwashed.
Well, you don't. But here's the thing, what I'm saying, when it's taken to another level.
Okay.
You're a child coming all the way in.
Okay.
So now from a child on up, who knows you best? The people inside of that organization, right? The people within. Everybody's talking. Lorraine will give you that money. Lorraine got it.
Mm-hmm.
Lorraine,
you don't have to be in a church for that to happen.
You don't have to, but what I'm saying is I'm just using the words of how people feel guilty. And this is what I say, the manipulation, because now the mindset, if this has broken your brain to believe this from a child on up, you have years of detoxing. You have a longer stride. Some people break out of mindsets a lot sooner than others.
Right.
Some people can let things go a lot sooner than other people actually say, because they say, well, I ain't doing that. And it's like, how did you do that? How am I going to do it? And they'll say, well, I ain't giving no more. And they be like, Lorraine, can you give it? Yes, ma'am, I'll give it to you.
Well, listen, the people, it doesn't matter if you're in a church. It doesn't matter if you're in a cult. It doesn't matter if you just have a clique of friends, a group of friends, or you're just the giver in the family. You know, the people will find you. That doesn't really matter. You know, if you have that thing, and then this is why I say we're all kind of brainwashed. We all have an identity construct that has been societally set from your family, from your churches, from your friends. I mean, from the time we're born, there's a blank slate, and everything in life is creating experiences that give you this ego, right? This identity. My name is a brainwash thing. You could tell me my name was 100 different names, and with Lorraine, I have a description of who I am and what I do and how I think and how I feel, and why. It's all programming. Okay, right? We're programmed no matter what. It's just you got to decide which program you need to uninstall.
See, but that's the hard part. I was raised to believe that you're supposed to go to prison. You're a real man if you go to prison. That proves your manhood.
Right.
You got to go get a charge. It's so crazy that I myself worked on 4 degrees and never got a party for those 4 degrees. But I watched all my uncles and cousins get out of prison. They got a party waiting on them. They got a card waiting on them. Think about the mindset of this.
That's
so
true.
I got to go to prison so I can get that party. Right. Somebody going to come and give them some money too. But then they kept going back. My grandma said they had a lover up there, and now I believe it. So for me personally, my grandma said, you try to get up there to go see that woman. And I'm like, what? So I don't want none of those women up there.
Are they hyenas?
Oh. Yep, mental health hyenas. So when you look at that mindset, right, a kid watching this, they want that same praise. Kids want acknowledgement. So me growing up as a child, trying to become that, which was a part of my environment, all the men who were leaders in my environment did not have male leaders. Did you catch that?
I did.
So now it's a young boy that grows up to figure it out on his own. He doesn't have no other man. Then there's other young boys that come around him, but who's leading him? The women. The women are leading him, but they don't necessarily respect him and his character. It's a challenge. So now it's a brainwashing. Unconsciously, I chose relationships that resemble that.
Okay, that
so
makes sense.
When you're talking about actually changing your mindset, that is a challenge, because how do I get from that? How do I get from these toxic relationships that I keep choosing, which is a part of what I was raised with, and then how am I going to get to a healthy relationship when normally, like you say, you normally shut down?
Now, are you asking me that, or
no,
are you just?
I'm just paraphrasing a question to just bring it all back around.
So answer the question: how do you do it?
How do you do it? Because a lot of people want to know that.
That's what I'm asking you, Mofo.
well, for me, I just told you it's been like the last 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years.
So the how starts with the acknowledgement of that situation. That's how it all starts, right? It's not this complicated process that has to go on. It takes time, and it's powerful over time. It's a compounding effect.
Yes.
The first thing I recognize is this doesn't feel right. I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about these choices I'm making. The first way to really have a power of mindset is to see yourself in it, is to recognize these are choices that you're making. Yes, this happened in your childhood. Yes, this is what you were raised with. Yes, these are the hyenas and the lions, the tigers, and the bears. Yes. Okay. But I can't just stay focused on that, because I'm not going to move. I just have to say yes, but now what?
Okay.
You got to be, in order for you to get the change, is you have to say, right now in this present moment, I understand that all of these things have happened to me in my life. I understand I was programmed this way. And because of that programming, I'm making these choices. This is powerful when you say, I am making these choices because of this. I no longer want to make these choices. So I got to dig deep and say, what are the patterns? What are the emotional attachments I have to this?
Yes.
What is familiar to me about this? And what can I change little by little? And this goes back, circling back to why we started this, is I now have to first start by creating boundaries. You literally have to go on an island and burn the boats, which means that there is going to have to be some shifting and moving and removing yourself from people and those familiar patterns. You have to interrupt patterns.
What do you say about those people who are still in that environment? They're trying to take your advice. Because here's one of the struggles I can attest to.
It's a great question.
Is I'm still in this environment that I can't get away from.
When you say I'm still in this environment.
Meaning that if a person grew up in a certain environment, because environments change a lot of your mindset as well.
Of course, absolutely.
So when I wake up and I'm still in this hood situation and amongst these people that are unhealthy.
You're a
and
grown man. Why are you still there?
No. There are grown men. There are young girls. There are a lot of people. I'm talking to the masses now.
Okay.
Because this is a consistent. For instance, you have a young girl.
But I'm talking adult. Okay.
If you're talking about adult.
Yeah, well, because a child can't get out. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate thing. But there's different phases in our life. I just heard this recently. I can't remember what book or whatever I read it on. But you've got 0 to 20. Okay. You've got 20 to about 40, and then you've got 40 plus. Your 0 to 20 years, that first 2 decades of your life is when you're under the control and the thing of other people, right? Until you're 18 in America, you have to be in that environment, unfortunately.
Okay.
Right? And so that environment is molding you in different ways. It's molding you either to say, I never want this for my life. When I get out of here, I'm going to run for the hills or whatever, or you're just going to get trapped in it and you're going to duplicate it, right? But the point is, when you hit about 20 some years old and you're able to be on your own, you're going to struggle and you're going to play around with what you learned, and you're going to show that it's going to show up in your life in different ways. Now you have the power to make different choices if you're mindful enough to do that, right? So I'm not talking about children. If somebody were listening to this and they're like, I am in this environment.
Yes.
And you know that, and you're describing the environment as toxic, then you already know it's an environment you need to remove yourself from.
Correct.
Okay.
What I'm saying is there are a lot of people who have, like we said, generational curses, generational cycles.
Okay.
And a person is trying to get out of that cycle. It's not that easy. I'm not making up an excuse.
It's not easy.
I'm not making up an excuse. Yeah. But when we talk about this, a lot of people are a lot of times looking for that step-by-step. How do I get there? Or what do I need to do? What do I need to break first?
It's a compounding effect.
Exactly.
It's interrupting. So I'm going to answer that. It's interrupting patterns. Okay. The first step is to recognize the pattern. That's the first step. I am in a cycle here. And I recognize that it's generational. I am duplicating some of the things I grew up with. These are the things that I'm doing. But what are the patterns? What do I get up every day? Who's the person I call? Who is the person I'm talking to the most? Look at your 5 people you are in proximity to. That's a powerful thing. My mom used to always say, if you show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. And that is a powerful thing. When I am trying to interrupt something, I have to first recognize what needs to be interrupted. I need to look at my life and the people I'm talking to and the things that I'm listening to and the environments I go to. All of those things are playing a role in this pattern that you have for your life. If toxic people go to this club and that's where I show up at the bar to meet those people, I got to stop doing that. I have to make that choice. If the phone call I make is about gossiping about people and, oh, you never heard it, I'm going to have to say, you know what? I don't want to have that conversation. You have to, and it's little tweaks that you're making that start to shift you. And that's what it is. You have to first recognize the pattern in order for you to change and interrupt the pattern.
A lot of people are not in the place where
Did you catch that?
I definitely caught it. I definitely caught it.
That's what you said earlier.
Look, did you hear me? Did you hear me now? A lot of people struggle with being in isolation. That is one of the biggest challenges.
And I don't mean you have to be in isolation.
Well, it doesn't mean it, but it helps. It helps and is really needed.
Yes and no. You have to be very careful of having an idle mind. Okay? And I don't mean to interrupt you. I think it is very important that we do take time to self, but it's the language that we use and what that means to us that can really mess us up. If I say, you know what, I need to be still and know I have to silence all the noise and all the chaos, and I need to spend time with self so I can reflect and grow, that's a beautiful thing. Now, if you were to say, I need to go in isolation, there's negative connotation. Words have power. So depending on how we describe what we're doing can ultimately affect us. And if I tell myself I'm going in isolation and I'm sitting in isolation for a long period of time, I'll end up with an idle mind that could really mess with me. So you have to be very, very careful and measure the intention when you're doing something and give yourself a time frame, because we are not meant, unless you're like Jesus or a monk or Moses or somebody, that they require solitude. We are meant to be in community, but we have to find the communities that serve us in a positive way. If I'm in a church, for example, and church means something to me because I go there because I want the word of God and I want to be filled with that, and the church has toxic people, you know what I mean? What am I going there for? Am I going there to spend time with the people, or am I going there to get the word? And if it doesn't feel right, then you have to remove yourself from that environment, as an example.
I'm going back and forth with this devil's advocate with you.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Because a lot of people...
passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people, they are going off of comfort sometimes as well.
Of course.
Meaning that the church is unhealthy. That environment is unhealthy, and they'll stay away from 1 week, and then they'll end up inching their way back.
It's addiction.
Because it's the
People
mindset.
have emotional addiction too.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was about to go right there, because they are tied to that. So a lot of people are so tied to some things that are toxic and unhealthy that detoxing those things out of your system isn't as easy as it sounds.
Well, you do go through withdrawal because you're on the biological side of our mind, right? When we talk about the way the brain works, it's just a repetitive system, okay? Yeah. And whenever we interrupt patterns, it doesn't feel comfortable. And I'll give you a really silly example.
Okay.
When I was practicing interrupting some of my patterns, it's I started with just, what is my normal routine every day? What side of the bed do I get out of? I literally spent a week just seeing little tweaks, okay? What foot goes down first? What's the next foot? What's the first thing I do? Literally, I didn't interrupt it. I just paid attention to it. And there was a sequence of things that I did that were systematic, okay? So what I did was for example, when I wake up, the first thing I do is grab my phone and I start scrolling, okay? So what I did was I put my phone in another room and I said, I'm not going to touch my phone till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Now.
What a brave soul.
Brave soul indeed. What was weird about it is just that little switch in my pattern. It interrupted a pattern that I do in my daily routine. I could not understand, right? I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But literally by day 2, I felt so unnerved and irritated, and I was just like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like whatever? But it was because I glitched. The brain pattern got glitched.
You didn't sage.
I didn't sage, apparently, right? But my point of saying all of this is that when we're looking to make these big changes in our lives, to try to radically shift, it can make it really hard, and the withdrawal can be very painful. And so when you're looking to change your life and be in environments that are fulfilling for you, it's about making small adjustments so it doesn't feel so whatever. And for some people, they literally have to just cold turkey cut it out of their lives.
Well, because when you're going through that, there's a lot of emotions involved.
Of course.
For me personally, I was really crying. I was really crying because now we're dealing with what happened in the past, what happened a few months ago, and so on and so on. And I put so much trust into this person, that and that. And you have to go through that whole phase when we're talking about detoxing this stuff out, is you got to call a lot of that stuff out. And you got to recognize, where did it come from? Where did it start? All of those patterns. Yeah. So that now you can start healing within yourself. Right. And now you can start creating boundaries. It took me a while. I'm talking about Clevonne now. It took me a while.
I like how you refer to yourself in third person.
I'm talking about Clevonne. It took me a while because I believed for so long that I'm going to let it go and I'm going to let God work it out and God figure it out. And I had to realize that
that God says faith without works is dead.
Yeah, well,
you got to put the work in.
No, I had to embody some of that Lucifer stuff and say, you know what, you and your mama,
Jesus. No, you did not.
Y'all ain't look. You're not worth a wrestling mosquito jacket. I realized a lot of things because I kept trying to go backwards. I kept trying to go backwards.
And that's okay, but you got to give yourself grace in that process.
You give yourself the grace, but then what a lot of people do is we beat ourselves up so often when we go backwards. So I was so prone to not having healthy relationships that when there was a healthy relationship, I self-sabotaged it with no hesitation. It could be a beautiful girl and she got everything that I need and all of that, and I chose her over the hood chick. Because she reminded me of those hyenas I was raised around. She brought the toxicity to the door. And the one that had it together would have complimented me a lot better. Even if we hadn't stayed together, I could have somebody I could have still looped back around and worked with.
Well, I mean, listen, we're all guilty of, if you don't know who you are and you don't feel your worth in things, then you will attract things that solidify your unworthiness.
And that's a part of the insecurity.
Right.
See,
well, it's just familiar emotions, right? The thing is, again, even the way we are stimulated emotionally is a pattern. And even if it's a negative feeling, it becomes part of our identity construct. There are stories you tell there, like right now.
Okay.
And as an example, there are certain stories I tell in my life that will trigger emotion. There are certain repetitive thinking that I do that trigger emotion. Everything we're doing is triggering some type of emotional cycle in us, right? And so we have habits in those cycles, and it becomes a personality trait. It's something that gets really hardwired in us. So there's a guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about this all the time. And it's fascinating, but it's very, very true. So to your point, if I don't have a demonstration or a feeling when it comes to an intimate partner that is safe, and loving and enduring, because I don't know those emotional patterns, then you're absolutely right. I won't recognize it when I meet that because I don't trust that feeling. And so this is where, again, it's like I have to make this choice for my life that I want more fulfilling things. How do I get that?
So you're a stabber. Because you say your mind,
stabber?
Yeah, you say your mind keep
like
going.
Like a shank with a knife?
Yeah. You used to be jugging people. So, because I'll say this is, I never seen a lot of women in healthy relationships. I never seen men in healthy relationships. I know one person in my family, on both sides of my family, that's been married since I was a kid. One.
Okay.
And when I look at everybody else, there's nobody else has ever had a healthy relationship. If somebody's relationship is bad, everybody's cool with it. If somebody's relationship is good, everybody helps to tear it down.
I understand that, but
where I'm going with this is that some people struggle because they stay in that environment and they got to break out of that environment.
So what's the answer?
The environment, and the answer is you.
But what do you do about it? Because I could say I could pack up and move, and for some people that's just not economically feasible.
No,
right? You could say I can walk away from these people, but they're my family. I don't want to walk away from them. So what does a person do?
You say F them and feed them beans.
You're so funny. You say the silliest things.
What does a person do in that situation? Because that's a challenging question that you're asking.
You have to choose you first, and I feel like the first thing you do before you make radical shifts, right? Unless it's, and let me put this disclaimer out there: unless it is abuse, where you're being abused, then you just got to get out. But and that's a whole nother conversation, because that's hard to do too when you're in abusive relationships, and that's a pattern. And people say, why don't they just leave? Why don't they just leave? That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But let me digress and go back to the original point. You first have to make you the priority. And what I mean by that is say, you know what? I am worthy of being loved. I am worthy of being happy, and understand your worth. And you can say that. It doesn't mean that it's going to digest right away, right? And what you have to do is you have to decide, how do I impregnate myself with this concept and give it the gestation that it needs to grow so you can birth that and make that a thing. I can assure you that when you start to work on yourself and you make that a priority, I need to work on myself. I need to do things that are loving for myself. I'm going to read books that help me to love. I'm going to listen to things that make me feel love. I'm going to watch people who seem like they're loved so I can attract myself to that identity. And when you start to shift inside of you, the people around you, the environment around you, it will shift. It will change because you just naturally and organically will move away from it.
Go back to what you just said when you say choose you. That is one of the greatest decisions I've ever in my life made, because I never made that decision before. Because remember, once again, my brain structure was different than yours. I was raised in church. Put the people first. You put the people before your household. You take care of God's people beforehand. God will take care of you later. And so I embodied that.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there is something
in the true essence of it. There's not
listen
necessarily
to me.
something
This
wrong
is
with
where I say it's a problem, because I wanted to be accepted so bad.
So you became a people pleaser.
I became that. I wanted to fit in so bad that I made a lot of bad choices along the way. So when we get to the point of saying, I finally choose me, people will call you selfish.
Right.
People will put you down. People will have a lot of words. But once again, you say, I thank you for the compliment, and you keep pushing.
Right.
Because we take people's word as the Bible, how they feel, what they think. Why am I worried about them and their feelings? When you're talking about taking care of you, when you're talking about doing things to help you and benefit you, that's a whole nother ball game. But a lot of people got to know the steps of how to get there. And a lot of them don't know it. So I much props to you for actually putting it out there.
I'm a stabber.
Yeah, you're a jug. You gonna jug. So once again, if you wasn't dealing with her, just know when her brain get to going.
I feel like it is. I do have empathy and I do have understanding of how difficult it is to interrupt your patterns, is to remove yourself from that familiar pattern, especially when it's been hardwired. When it's been repetitive for years upon years upon years, it becomes very hardwired in your mind, right? And so I do understand how difficult it can be. And this is why I say it's just 1% adjustment over time will compound to give you unbelievable results. And I think we put too much pressure on ourselves sometimes to try to have it all figured out right away. And then, like you said, and then if we have setbacks, we beat ourselves up, or we stay there because we beat ourselves up and we don't give ourselves the grace. And I'm going to circle back a little bit to what you said about people pleasing, because a lot of people I coach, that's one of their biggest problems. That's why they come to me for coaching. And even just recently, a new client I had, and she's like, I'm a people pleaser. And what does that mean? And as she's breaking down and defining what people pleasing, it was all negative stuff. And I said, but that's your gift. Okay. People pleasing does not make you a bad person. What makes it bad is when you are surrounding yourself with people who rob you of your gift. Because to be able to say, I love to please people, I love to put people at first and be at the forefront of people, I mean, that's a dynamic gift to have. It's a beautiful, loving quality to have. You just have to be around people who can appreciate that, where you can be a servant to that in a way that it doesn't deplete you. But you got to get clear. If you're telling yourself your people pleasing is a bad thing, then you're going to attract situations that will make you feel like it's bad.
Well, and can I say something? I don't know if you ever seen this movie. It's called King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone. Did you ever look at that movie?
No, but you told me about it and I looked it up.
I'm going to suplex you. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with that movie is that this young boy was grown up in his mom and dad was the king and queen, and the uncle killed the mom and dad. But the presence is he grew up amongst the poor people. So he grew up thinking he was poor.
Now, is this a spoiler alert? I mean, are you just killing it for me?
No, I ain't trying to kill it. I'm trying to make a point.
Okay.
That he grew up with this mindset, but he was a natural leader within the community he was at.
Okay.
So the uncle wanted to kill him as well. Okay. But he was a natural leader. The woman told him when they finally got a hold of him and they was trying to get him to, you're supposed to be the leader. You're meant to be this leader. The lady said, if you want him to think big, you got to give him something big to think about. You have to break down the old him. And a lot of us have to be broken down. The old us have to be broken down so that we can translate this new phase of life that we need to be in.
Yes, but we also have to understand that when we bury the old us, there is a resurrection. There's a ghost, okay? And that old you will always have a lingering effect. It will always be there showing up. It's like a ghost. It will always be there. You can't completely just sacrifice old self and say it's going to be completely gone. And to understand that. And also too, when we are looking for a new life, remember what I said, you plant the seed, there's a gestation. It has to grow before you give birth to it. When you give birth to it, you have to nurture it so it can grow. It's not going to come out, this new you is not going to come out a grown person.
No.
I'm 43 years old. It took me 43 years to get here. Okay. If all of a sudden I want to change, I'm not going to walk out a brand new 43-year-old. I gotta nurture that thing, and I gotta be delicate with it. I've got to feed it what it needs to be fed so it can grow, so it can eventually walk, so it can eventually run. You get my point?
I get
There's
the
going to
point.
be an adolescent stage. There's going to be. No, I'm just kidding.
There was a community of people that supported him as well. There was a community of people that reassured him of what his purpose was. But then here's the catch. This is why I say mentorship is very important.
Okay.
Because they mentored him in the next phase of where he needed to be at.
Right.
What he did amongst the poor people was a natural thing of leadership.
Right.
But for him to go to the next level, he had the community of people that was amongst his dad that backed him up. Now there were millions of people waiting for him. They was waiting, just been waiting for years. Do you realize how many gifted people are out there that people have been waiting on you?
Of course.
But you either you're fearful, you don't have the right support, you don't know how to get there.
Right.
It's just you naturally do this thing to reach the people.
Right.
And he's a natural leader to reach the people. So once he started showing himself, people were so excited they backed him up. Everybody backed him up and supported him.
And in the same, I know you're referencing the movie, but in the reality of real life, you'll have those people, but you'll also have the people that are not comfortable with your change. And
Correct.
and that's okay. I can tell you, for me personally, and again, I'm gonna go back to the boundary thing. When I enter a new season in my life, and I'm very clear on that season, okay? So I'm not talking about going into my winter. I'm talking about entering into my spring.
Okay.
When I'm ready to blossom and bloom. One of the things that I've done.
That's your birthday.
Huh?
Keep going.
You're so funny. You know, squirrel. But
muskrat.
hyena. Anyways, as I'm saying, when you come into your new season, you have to get clarity with things, right? And I'll give you an example for me personally. I'm in a season in my life now where there are very specific things that I really want to grow and for it to mature.
Okay.
What I recognize in that is that it is very important as I do this growth thing, what I am attaching myself to. Mm-hmm. Because in order for me to have that growth, I have to understand the identity of what that looks like. I need to emulate that. So I can't be around people who are not growers. Mm-hmm. Right? So there are certain friendships that I've had that are very dear to me that I've created distance between. Because what I had recognized is that if I'm hanging around like-minded people, okay, and my mindset right now isn't growing and propelling, then like-mind is not where I need to be. I need to be in rooms where people are smarter than me. I need to be in environments where people are growing. I need to be around farmers who know how to cultivate a harvest, right? And so even in my friendships, I had to be really honest with myself and say, as much as I love these people and they will be my friends, I can't stay in proximity to them because they're not growing.
Can I say this?
And also, real quick, and also they don't appreciate and value the growth that I want to give to them. So if I'm growing and I want them to grow, because I have a habit of that, I want to take everybody with me on the ride, right?
Oh yeah, that's me.
And so sometimes when I'm like, you got to do this, you need to do this, they look at it as judgment.
Yep.
They're looking at it as like, I don't need your handouts. And it's like, we're in different spaces.
You want me to do that. That's what you want.
Right. And just understanding like, okay, don't judge this, Lorraine. Understand that we're in just different spaces. If I'm trying to give you a hand up,
okay,
and you're seeing that as a hand down, or hand out, excuse me, then we're in different spaces in our friendship. Because I need friendships that are going to give me hand ups as well. I need us to be like, I'm going to help you up, you're going to help me up, and we're going to help each other up. And so me creating boundaries and saying, what does this new season look like for my life? What are the things, where are my farmers at? How do I cultivate this new thing? And I have to surround myself with people that are not going to drag me down. And that includes family. If there's family who are like negative and they're naysaying, and every time I post something or I say something positive, they're like, oh, you think you're self-righteous and this and this and that, and they want to say nasty stuff. I gotta put the blinders on. I gotta plug the ears, and I gotta keep pushing.
But hold on, First Lady. Hold on, because you was preaching the word there. But here's so one. Hold on, First Lady. Hold on. For ladies, the First Lady has
Look,
spoken.
I ain't no hyena, okay?
You ain't no hyena, thank God. But here's one of the things what I learned, and I'll always use myself as transparency, is that I learned in one phase when you take the losses, right? For me, I'm shifting a whole nother conversation from then to now with boundaries. I learned that I took so many people with me, so many wrong people, that all the right people left me. Sometimes the right people
The
will
right people will never leave you.
No. When I say they left me, I mean they stepped aside.
Okay.
They stepped aside because they would always ask me, why you got that dude with you? Why you got her with you?
Right.
Hey, bro, you should watch that person. And I'm
Right.
like, no, they good. They God's people. I'm going to bring them. I'm going to bring the church. I'm going to bring everybody with me. And I took so many losses. When I took that loss, none of those people were there. The same people that stepped aside say, man, I'm here. Whenever you're ready to get back on, I'm right here with you. But there's a phase when I had to take a step back because I took everything so personal.
Right.
Why would they leave me? Why didn't they help me? Why didn't they do this? And I realized that some people energy is so negative that it will affect. I never understood energy either.
Right.
So when we're talking about the negativity of the energy and people that you welcome in your home and your environment and so on and so, that can mess everything around you up too.
Yeah.
So when we talk about bringing boundaries, there are some people you got to put the Heisman up. You got to stiff arm them and keep them over there, and not let everybody in your environment.
Yeah.
Not let everybody in your safety net so that you can continue winning. Stop telling everybody everything that's going on in your life.
That's true.
Stop letting everybody know your next move so that you can get there. And when you recognize, like you just said about some people who are not growing, what do you do with that? Is that, all right, I got to put them in this category over here. I'm going to holler at you on the 1st and 15th of every other month because I realize that you are stuck. I realize that you are not going no further than where you are.
And you don't even, I don't even know if you even have to say all that,
Well,
because it's not for me to determine if somebody's stuck. All I know is they're not going where I want to go.
Well, but you know a lot of these characteristics. So where I'm going with that is that now I'm talking about my healing for Clevonne. With my healing.
Third person, Clevonne.
Right, muskrat. So I realized within my own level of healing that I stopped blaming everybody else. And now I've learned, oh, these are people, like you just said, who can help me.
Yeah.
These are people who are positive.
Yeah.
These people over here that are takers. Those takers don't need to be anywhere near anything I'm doing.
Right.
There are people that really have it out for you, and you know it, and then you keep making up excuses for them.
Right.
There are literally people in there who speak negativity about you, and you keep making up excuses for them. So that's a part of your mind.
And listen, and sometimes when you are growing and you're around people who maybe at one point in time you were on the same level or you were doing the same things and you start to kind of outgrow them, and then your friendship or your relationship becomes a threat to them. And they get, there's some envy, unfortunately. And so being able to discern that and recognize that as well without judgment. It's like, this is what it is. This is who I am. I can't spend my life when I'm trying to grow, spend my time dimming my light to make people comfortable. I am a light bulb, and this is my wattage, and this is how bright I'm going to, whatever that is, whatever that means. And by the way, everybody is a light bulb in their own sense, and let them have their thing. But it's just like, again, we're going to go back to the boundaries thing and just getting clarity and understanding who you are, what you really want for your life. And unfortunately, some people are not going to serve in that season in your life. They just won't benefit you. And it's understanding that without judging them. Because, it's just like a taker is a taker for a reason, right?
Correct.
And they have their own set of stories and their own sadness and their own reasons why they don't do things for themselves. And I'm not here to judge that. I just can't be in proximity to it.
Correct.
And I think when we can create boundaries, it's easier to do it when you're not judging the person. And I've literally had to establish boundaries with certain people in my life recently, even.
Okay.
Where I'm like, I'm not going to judge this person because I know that this is what they're going through, or I know what hurts and pains are that lead them down their pathway. From my opinion, from my perspective, it doesn't mean I'm right what I'm saying, but my observation says that's where they're at. And when I speak to them, or when I try to encourage them, or when I try to be whatever, they're seeing that as a threat for whatever reason. And I can't not be me. And so I have to create space. And I love these people, and I don't need to judge them, but I have to create boundaries so I can keep moving.
Well, when you're broken, and acknowledge this as a person, whoever's viewing this as well, when you realize that you're broken, you don't want to continue having more broken people around you. Because now you realize I got a pack of broken people, and now that's all my conversation.
I've learned not to use language like that. And what I mean by that is, when we use I used to say, oh, I'm broken and I'm getting my healing.
Okay.
But what I realized is that when I attached myself to saying that I'm broken, I attracted broken things. I have to say I'm healed or I'm healing.
So do I say unhealed people when I realize I got unhealed people around me?
I just don't
Come
need to
on.
label them. I don't need to determine their brokenness, I guess. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I get what you're saying, but I'm saying
all I
recognize.
got to do is focus on self. Where am I at? What's the language I use for myself? How do I see myself? Them being broken, them being hurt, I don't need to label it because then that means I'm judging it. Let them be.
But does it affect you?
If it affects me, then I create boundaries and I move on, but I don't judge it.
So it's all right. I'm not saying judge it. I'm saying, like you just said, in
Yeah.
other words, recognize it. So
I'm just telling you, it's just so liberating to do it that way, and it keeps your power.
okay, coach, listen to me.
That's what I do, yo.
Listen to me. The coach has spoken, ladies and gentlemen. So as a coach, because
And we're gonna be wrapping up here soon too.
we are.
Okay.
Give us like 3 more minutes. All right. As a coach, when you're talking about actually getting to using specific words, which I do like what you said with that, because words do have power. If I say I'm broke, I'm broke. But if I say my money's in a transition right now, my money's in a transition.
That's
it's on the way.
Right. That's exactly right.
So it's the words that you choose. So as an individual, when you're coaching people, you're telling them to choose a different dynamic of words
What I do
that can hurt them or help them.
What I do is I listen. When I get a client, I call it unpacking.
Okay.
I let them unpack their bag.
Okay.
And when I'm listening to them, when they're talking to me, I'm listening to words that they use,
Okay.
patterns that they have. I'm looking for consistencies and inconsistencies. Because when they start to talk to me, they depend on the type of personality type that they have. They're going to either tell me everything they want to hear, or they're going to dump about this, or they're going to blame. So I'm looking for their characteristics and how they are in their storytelling. Are they the villain? Are they the victim? Where are they at in their story? I'm looking for specific patterns. But again, like I said earlier, I'm looking for their blind spots.
Okay.
When you use the word broken, I'm broken, right? You'll hear a person say that. That becomes such a mantra and a narrative in their head that they don't realize it's a blind spot.
Yes.
Because they're using that particular word to describe their current state. They don't realize that that's why they're still attracting brokenness.
Okay.
And it's a powerful thing. And I learned this for myself because at one point in my life, I felt I was broken.
Okay.
And I was seeking anything to heal me.
Okay.
But I was broken, okay? So if I read a book, whether it was self-help, whether it was the Bible, I could find every Yep, see, even this book knows that I'm broken.
So you become a product
what
of what
happens
you
is,
attract.
what you don't realize is that you're looking for confirmation in that thing, right? And I couldn't understand, as much as I was seeking help, I couldn't understand why I was becoming more and more depressed. And it was because everything that I sought out, I was looking really for confirmation.
Okay.
I had to change the word. I had to stop saying I was a broken person. And when I stopped saying that and said, I'm healed, even if I wasn't, I am healed. Different words stood out on the pages. Different messages were heard differently.
Okay.
I saw something different because I had a new narrative. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because again, like, it's activation. What are we activating in our mind? And sometimes we don't realize what we're saying about ourselves so subliminally that we don't catch why we're stuck, why we're attracting relationships. We think it's always the elephant in the room. I have daddy issues. I have mommy issues. I have this. Yeah, those are things. But what are the words that you attach to yourself because of those things? And that's the power.
So can I say this in wrapping up?
Sure.
I would encourage people to definitely call out you. When we're talking about moving forward, start calling out you and stop calling out everybody else. Call out you, what you did wrong, what you need to fix, what your issue is, why you did this. Even when things
without self-deprecating yourself. Because that's you have to be very careful with that.
In layman's term, was that word you
So
mean?
in other words, you can be accountable to self, but then there are people who are over accountable. So then they create guilt. And so when you are being accountable, you have to be mindful that you're not beating yourself up.
Got it. So that's going to happen, but that's definitely something to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're spending time calling out you eliminate calling out the other person. So if I spend so much time out of a marriage, I knew the marriage was unhealthy, but why did I choose the marriage? Why was I in it? What did I do wrong?
Correct.
What could I have done to fix it?
Mm-hmm.
Me is what needs to be addressed.
Right.
Not
that's
them,
where your
them,
power
them.
is.
That's where the power is. But a lot of people, so this is a part of getting your power back for you and not blaming everybody else. And it's going to help you with the phases of calling out or separating the boundaries.
Correct.
It's definitely going to help you and make it a lot more easier when you say, you know what, I chose them because I was miserable last week. I ain't miserable this week.
But you have to be careful when you are checking in with yourself that you don't over blame yourself to the point that you guilt yourself back into your toxicity. And that is something we do, right? We rationalize. Sometimes when we are saying we're being accountable, what we're doing is we're blaming. And there's a difference between accountability and self-blame.
Some of it becomes
and
addiction,
when you
too.
get into certain situations, whether it's friendships or relationships or whatever, and you start being over accountable and you start blaming yourself, you will rationalize your way right back into that situation, because now you feel that you're going to go in there and be a better person and fix it. Sometimes you have to say, these are the things, I made these choices for my life, but the healthiest thing for me to do is to create the boundaries and walk the hell away.
Got you. And so you don't want to be a part of that addiction no more. If you don't want to be a part of that addiction, you got to acknowledge what the addiction is. One day at a time, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I had to do for myself.
Eat the elephant one bite at a time.
One day at a time, because, man, I tell you right now, addictions are very hard to break, but you cannot expect to break it tomorrow. You got to address the thing and move forward.
Now you preaching greens, beans, jam, potatoes.
Man, I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I so appreciate being light-skinned in the studio.
You're so silly.
I am light-skinned for the first time. I'm almost I want to be Michael Jackson. I'm going to be Jermaine Jackson.
You are so silly. I appreciate you. I missed you.
LaToya, huh?
Oh, do not call me LaToya.
All right, go ahead. I'm messing.
No, I'm just kidding. You can call me LaToya. She's beautiful. Anyway, I missed you. I really appreciate you coming in the studio and just having like a raw, unscripted, whatever. We just was flowing. You can come back anytime.
It's a good flow, and every time I always meet up with you, you got a headache or you got some other issue going on. When we on the phone, you energetic, so you gonna have to figure that part out.
No,
I'm messing with you.
I do have a headache today, and I felt like I was like glitching when I was talking, and my head's like boom, 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 and then I'm rambling, and I don't know what I'm saying. I can't
Real G's
synapse
don't cry.
my thoughts.
Hey, look, I truly appreciate it, and thank you as well. Thank you, Quan, for all the help and support
Quan
as well.
in the
Man,
studio.
this dude right here is dope as well. What is it? What is the name? Guillermo? Am I saying it right?
What are you talking about?
The name, the studio.
It's Gorilla, mofo.
Oh, Gorilla. Gorilla. Hey, look, ladies and gentlemen, I do have education, right? I have degrees. I just misspelled that word in my head. It's behind me. I just want to let y'all know I was trying to say gorilla is Gorrr. This is GUE. What's the E? U is silent?
I don't know, man.
See,
but that was funny. You said Guillermo?
Yeah, Guillermo. Look, I'm learning my Spanish too, ladies and gentlemen. La Perez, La Rosa. All right, so I truly appreciate you as well. Much love to you and for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I truly hope that it's something that was said that's definitely to help somebody move forward.
In there. And I think it was a real raw conversation. It was real. So I appreciate it. And I actually would like to do more of that, where we're just kind of speaking what comes to mind, getting off topic, getting back on topic, all that good stuff.
Hey, look, that's when you got two people who overthink situations. Cause my brain.
No, speak for yourself.
Look, hey, you just said your brain, you a stabber. Your brain gets to going and it just drifts.
Yeah.
But
I'm a very psychoanalytical mind.
Hey, look, this
absolutely
is pretty dope though. This is pretty dope. Do you have a closer?
Yeah, so thanks, Cleve. I appreciate that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have not subscribed, please do not forget to hit the subscription button. There's a lot of you that are watching, but you're not subscribing, so I do appreciate the subscriptions and the thumbs up. And until next time, ciao.
We came from Clark to here. This is dope.
Man.
Get up.